ground. Keep too much glory. Stuff down and glory. Could be too much glory. We can't try.
All right, welcome to another episode of Grinds My Gears. Welcome back, good friend, good times, Devon Thompson. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing fine. I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm okay. I had a long day with my little guy. You know, you have two of them, but one, one little guy's they're a nightmare compared to girls, man.
Yeah, they are. Well, things are a lot better than the last time we spoke.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that we're out of the woods yet.
No,
right? It means that we have more wiggle room now, right?
Yeah. Like we spoke a while ago before the conservative leadership race and shortly after the whole convoy stuff. And I think when we spoke last time, we were in a bit of Canada was facing like a bit of a funk, like in terms of where we were at, right? And I mean, things have changed since we talked last, but for the better, for the worse, I don't know. We'll figure that out when we talk today. But I mean, the first thing I wanted to touch on with you is we have that the leadership race did happen for the Conservative Party, and Pierre did win. Now, what do you think about how this administration has kind of done so far?
So, you know, I try to do my best to give them some room to let them do what they're doing. You know, I see Pierre a lot talking about inflation, you know, just inflation.
Yeah.
It's wrong to talk about that because lots of families, my family, I'm sure your family as well, are experiencing the increases in, you know, cost of living.
Yeah.
Right. You look at your gas bill, you look at your energy bill, you look at your food bill. You know, I got two boys. One is 5 now, and he's eating a lot.
Yeah.
Right. You're looking at your bill. You're looking at your gas bill to for your vehicle to drive from home to work. In my case, I drive all the way from Barrie to Toronto.
Yeah.
It's getting crazy. So he's not wrong to speak about the massive inflation and increase in cost of living that the Trudeau government has forced upon us. And not just Trudeau, Doug Ford and the other 9 premiers as well. I'm not talking about Danielle Smith, she's recent.
Yeah.
Because the lockdowns have partial responsibility for what's going on. They shut down our borders, right? They shut down our economy, they shut down our small businesses. And for some reason, didn't think that all of this was going to happen. And then they're going to blame the Freedom Convoy for what, 1 or 2 days of leaving one lane open at a border.
Yeah.
Right. So they blame the Freedom Convoy for that, but never blame the 2 straight years of economic warfare that the 10 premiers of Ontario and Justin Trudeau launched against the people. But I think that Pierre right now is kind of taking it easy. I don't know why. I would have loved to see him speak more about the Public Emergency Commission, where Justin Trudeau's ministers joked about sending tanks in, you know, to mow down peaceful protesters. I would have loved to see him speak about that.
Was that a joke or were they serious? Because from what I read, it seemed like it was serious.
They were serious. That's not a joke.
Yeah.
You're not joking, right?
Yeah, it seemed like they were seriously considering tanks, right? And against your own citizens. That should be concerning. That's some China bullshit right there, which we'll get into later.
Yeah, right? they opted to send horses instead to trample on
old ladies. Yeah.
Right. But yeah, I would have loved to see him speak more about these things, right? Because this is what his supporters want to hear. And I'm on Twitter every day, and I'm tagging him. I tag Maxime Bernier too, and I say, Pierre, you need to start listening to your supporters because you might lose them to Maxime Bernier. Yeah. It's not an attack on Pierre or anything. I'm just assessing the situation. I'm reading what people are saying, and a lot of people aren't really hearing from Pierre what they thought he was going to speak about after electing him.
Yes. Now, when he's in the House, I'm trying not to consume my brain with too much of that, like watching what they're talking about in the house. But
Into something.
I'll get the highlights in there, and I'll sit and
Mm.
when everyone's gone to bed, when my wife is like too much politics, I'm like, okay. When you go to bed, I'll do it. Right. So, um, I don't hear any key talking points from a lot of his campaign promises on how he wanted to make Canada the freest nation in the world. Yet I haven't seen any action towards those words yet. My biggest my biggest concern is, and a shout out to Tulsi Gabbard, because she's an amazing politician out in the States. For people who don't know, she was a Democrat. She recently left the Democratic Party, but she's the only level-headed liberal I can stand in today's political landscape. But um, in one of her podcasts, I believe it was with Joe Rogan, she spoke about the regime change wars and how politicians use these regime change wars to either get elected or to further their agendas. And one of the things I'm noticing with this conservative party, and don't get me wrong, as a human being, I'm very sympathetic towards the Iranian people about what's going on in Iran and all that kind of stuff. But I'm seeing a lot of their focus on Iran. What is Trudeau going to do about Iran? And
Oh, so can I speak on that?
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I think the conservatives are right to focus a lot on Iran, and I'm going to tell you why.
Okay.
So the Islamic Republic is a producer of terrorism globally, and that's not good for Canada. And the other problem is that the Iranian Islamic Republic, they have cells in Canada, right? They have
Yeah,
agents in Canada. So one of the things that the Iranian community is saying is that they don't feel safe here because Trudeau is allowing the
the
Islamic
self-operate.
Republic,
Yeah.
yeah, to send their operatives into the country, and he's not deporting their operatives. So, which is why the conservatives keep asking him to designate the IRGC, that's
As a
the
terrorist
Islamic
group.
Republic Guard. I can't remember the full name. The
Yeah.
IRGC as a terrorist organization, so that you can stop their money flow and you can stop their ability to enter into Canada and to engage in some of these dangerous
Okay.
activities.
Now I have. Here's where I agree with you. Right. I'm not against that aspect of the whole Iran situation. But here's where I put my little hat on and I do a little digging because I spend a lot of time investing and one of the biggest things that come out of Iran is what? Oil, right?
Mm.
They control a huge supply of oil in the world. Now, when you think about this economically and politically, if you were to input a regime to force a regime change war, which they did in Afghanistan, which they did in plenty of other countries, to get control of this natural resource that right now the world is suffering with. It has significant political and financial gains, not for me and you, but for the people that are running the show. And so I think it's an opportunistic thing that they're doing. And I'm very concerned that they're going to use this as a catalyst. So what's going on in Iran and what you're talking about, the cells and the people feeling that they're unsafe, they're going to use this as a means to start if they were to get elected, a regime change war in order to shift the global energy supply away from
And
Iran.
so what I did was I spent a lot of time listening to what Iranians have been saying.
Yeah,
And one of the ways I did that was through Twitter Spaces. I would just go into their rooms and listen to what they're saying.
yeah,
And one of the things that they're saying is that we don't want the United States or Canada to send any troops to Iran.
yeah,
They can take care of it on their own, right? The only
yeah.
thing that they need is for Canada and the US to stop supporting the terrorist Islamic Republic, because I share the same concern as you, and they share that concern as well.
Yeah.
You don't want the US or Canada or NATO to go into Iran, kick out the Islamic regime, and put their own puppet government in power. They've done it in Africa over and over and over again.
And
And look at
they've done it in Ukraine too. That's what
yeah,
happened in Ukraine, and that's why we're in this situation with
and
Ukraine.
look at the state of these countries.
Yeah.
These Western countries planting their own puppet governments in place.
Yeah.
So I don't think any of us wants it, but at the same time, we recognize that the Iranian people are struggling. They're fighting for freedom, and I personally give my support to the Iranian
Yeah,
people
absolutely.
for fighting. But
Yeah.
as we said, we don't want a situation where any of our governments try to launch any military campaign.
No, I want zero of our boys and women to be over
Yes.
there. Zero. It's not our war to fight. We can support morally and we can support with sanctions, but in terms of putting our lives at risk for that, absolutely not. Because
Yeah, so
we
the Iranian people can take care of it on their own.
yeah,
They've shown that.
and where that comes back to is like, well, I'm sitting here listening to this conservative government talk right now, and yeah, they're talking about the Iran and inflation, but like you said, the cost of food and everything is going up.
Mhm.
And I don't think Canadians at this specific point in time really are too. I'm trying to find it the least insensitive way to put this. They're not too concerned with what's going on overseas when there's so much issues at home to deal with here. And I think the wrong approach is being taken. We're not taking care of the needs of our people first. We're spending our money and our time and our concerns somewhere else. And it's almost like, we're the afterthought when we're the ones footing the bill for all of these things, right?
Yeah, and that's why some of Daniel Smith's supporters are kind of upset right now because she pledged to send more of that province's money to Ukraine, right?
Yeah,
Rather
yeah.
than try to focus on helping the people in Alberta who really do need help. But I do see Pierre speaking about some issues in the country. For example, I saw where he posted a video on his Instagram where he went to BC to look at the homeless encampments where
Yeah.
they have that massive drug problem. So that is a major problem in Canada, and I'm glad that he's paying attention to it. And today, I don't remember. Yeah, it was today in the House of Commons. I was watching Question Period live, and Pierre was asking Trudeau, um, was there any interference from the Chinese Communist Party in Canada's federal election? And Trudeau basically flat out refused to
Dodge answer. Yeah.
right? And that is a serious concern because so Trudeau claims that there has been no influence that changed the outcome of any elections in Canada. That's what he says.
And
We can't believe anything that Trudeau says.
and this is the 2019 election, correct? This is the
it, it happened in the last one too, right? So
okay.
the report was about the other one, but I'm quite sure it happened in the last one too.
Yeah.
So the problem is that the CCP definitely is focused on interfering and influencing Canada's election. To what level, we do not know. So it was very, very important for Pierre to go into the House today to confront Justin Trudeau about that. So even though he isn't pushing his message about his freedom message that he had during the campaign, he is pushing certain messages that we really do want to hear.
Yeah.
We really do want to hear to hold Justin Trudeau accountable for everything that he's been doing, which is why I've opted not to go too hard on Pierre because because he is working, right? So I'm just giving him some space to do what he needs to do. But yes, he does need to amplify his freedom message more so that his supporters feel more comfortable in knowing that he's not going to go in the direction that Erin O'Toole went.
Yeah, and I think I'm hard on him too. And the only reason I'm hard on Pierre is because when I was growing up, I didn't pay too much attention to politics and those kind of and things. And then as I got older, I realized the importance of it, not necessarily to consume your life, but the decisions that these people make directly affect you in some way. You may not realize it. A lot of people don't realize it. A lot of people are like, I talk to a lot of people in my space. I'm like, oh, they're all the same. They all do the same thing. I'm like, well, yeah, morally they might all be the same, but policy wise, no, they're not all the same. You have to be vigilant, right? And
Yeah.
the one thing I am going to be very hard on any leader now is I'm going to be hard on them, and I'm going to always make them answer for their decisions. Because if we don't hold, I think if the last 3 years didn't teach us anything, if we don't hold them accountable, they will just keep going and going and going. So remaining skeptical is the best thing you can do as
Yeah.
a voter right now, because if you were to put all your eggs in one basket, we've learned this lesson over the last 3 years, 4 years, even probably even more. Putting all your eggs in one basket and putting your trust in a politician is foolish,
Yes.
right? Your trust should only be with your family, your wife, your kids. Everything else should be skeptical. You should always be skeptical and asking questions, questioning their movements, questioning their motives. It's not because I hate on the guy. I genuinely, like I told my wife,
Politicians just can't be trusted.
no, they can't.
They
But
just
no,
can't.
I told my wife at the start of the pandemic when Pierre just kind of appeared out of nowhere and was the guy who was talking. I'm like, well, if this guy leads the country, I might want to stay, right? And then lo and behold, he gets into this position where he could lead the country. So I want to give him that chance to prove himself. But at the
Mhm.
same time, I'm going to be skeptical. I'm going to hold him at account for every step, because if you don't, we end up where we are right now. You know what I mean?
So for me, I haven't decided who I'm voting for yet.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to be voting for the PPC, for the Conservatives, or for the Libertarians. Because as you're aware, my choice for the Conservative Party leader was Roman Baber.
Yeah.
So a lot of my decision on who to vote for actually lies with Roman Baber. So if Roman runs with the Conservatives, then most likely I'm going to be running with the Conservatives too. But one of my biggest concern today, well, two of my biggest concerns today are central banking digital currency and ESG scores.
Yeah.
If Pierre comes out tomorrow and speaks out fully, completely against CBDCs and ESG, he has my vote.
Yeah.
Straight, he has my vote. Any day he comes out and says that he will not implement central banking digital currency in Canada, and he will outlaw it, he will make it illegal, he will make it unconstitutional, charter right abuse.
Yeah.
He has my vote, because that is the most dangerous threat that we face as a human race right now. Central banking digital currency,
Yeah.
and ESG scores. We see a bank in British Columbia actually creating their ESG score credit card. I don't know if you saw that post.
Yeah, I saw it. And for people who don't know, that's the environmental carbon
Social
credit.
governance.
Yeah, social
Yeah.
governance. So basically, for people who don't understand what that means, it's like your credit card will have some sort of carbon footprint monitors. So if you buy a a crate made of wood, it will count a certain amount of points against your carbon footprint, to a certain point where whatever they decide is too much for your monthly allowance, you won't be able to buy certain things.
And that's exactly where it's going. So if you go to the grocery store with your ESG credit card to buy some steak, the credit card's gonna say, you bought 2 pounds of steak last month. You can't buy any of this month.
No steak for you, fatty.
Yeah, you're going to work, right? And you stop at a gas station to swipe your ESG credit card. The machine says, you went to the movies last night when you shouldn't have. You should have used your gas credit to go to work.
Your mileage.
Now you got to take the bus.
Yeah, your mileage is kind. Get on the bike, man.
Yeah, people don't understand. That's where we're heading,
and
that's where we're going.
I wouldn't say it was a problem, but the thing that kind of amplified this talk was I forgot the name of the company, but the company, the crypto exchange that went down. FTX, yes. And I got one of my clients who works in the banking sector. She kind of explained how it kind of works, where you have your cryptocurrency that you own, right? And you can kind of keep it there, like in your little crypto wallet, and just leave it, and it grows like a normal investment. Or you can give it to these guys. It's like a bank, and they can give these outrageous, I think it was 20% return to hold your crypto, and they're doing everything the same thing as like a bank does. They lend your crypto out to other people, so it's not really there anymore. But you still have the value with them. It's
Apparently, they weren't supposed to lend it out.
yeah, they weren't supposed to, but banks do that, right? I mean, that's the whole scam behind banking. That's another hour-long conversation. But
Yes.
the guy ended up taking all these people's money, spending on his own companies, this another company. That one went bankrupt. All the money's gone. The whole thing collapses. So the governments are now calling for some sort of regulation. We need to regulate to protect people, to protect. Um, and the danger with that is that this is an isolated incident. I don't think it will happen again. The people that are involved with cryptocurrency and these kind of networks are super smart. They're not gonna leverage the same way again. Like you look at someone who lost all the money, like Kevin O'Leary, lost a bunch of money. Do you really think he's gonna invest in a company again that's gonna be on the same kind of level as that? No, he's not going to.
Yeah.
So I don't believe this will happen again. The companies that are doing that right now will collapse. But if when these things happen, you got these give a little bit of kindling to these guys. Oh yeah, we need to centralize this. We need to regulate.
So I speak often about the role of government. So the role of government in this instance wouldn't be to go in to make rules about how companies like FTX should operate.
Yeah.
The only rules that a government should be making is rules surrounding the use of fraud in business transactions. So if the FTX founder is found guilty of engage in activities that goes against the contract that was signed between him and his customers, then that's fraud.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Plain and simple. So we don't need government to go into the cryptocurrency market to try to regulate it, because we know that what they're trying to do is regulate it away. Right? They don't want open source cryptocurrency. They don't want decentralized cryptocurrency. They want to be in control of it, just as they are in control of
the money right now.
currency.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, every single it took me a long time to learn this, man. It's like every single day you keep savings in your bank account, you're losing money, right?
Or under your mattress, in your pocket, under your TV right here. No matter where you're losing money.
Exactly. But more specifically in the bank. In the banking system, you like a couple of the young guys I train with, like they're coming up and they're like, how do I invest, Ashton? So I teach them a little bit what I know. I'm not an expert investor, but I teach them a little bit what I know. But the first thing I always teach them is like, I ask them like, how do you get paid? And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, how do you get paid? Like, where does your job pay you? They're like, oh, it just goes into my bank account. I'm like, okay, so it's direct deposit. I'm like, so do you ever see your money? They're silent. They're like, what the hell do you mean? I'm like, no, do you ever physically see your money that you make? And they're like, I guess not. I'm like, no, you never see your money. Your money, it doesn't exist. Your money goes from the bank account of your employer into your bank account directly. The minute it goes into your bank account directly, do you think the bank is sitting there with, say you have 10 grand? Do you think they're just sitting there holding your 10 grand, waiting for you to come get it? No.
Actually, it doesn't even go into your bank account. The bank just update some numbers.
Yeah, it's just a number. It's just a number.
It's a number.
Meanwhile, your $10,000, depending on the time of day that it gets deposited, is probably off in some sort of market, making the bank other thousands of millions of dollars.
In China,
right? I have a buddy who he's quite savvy to this crap, right? So he's like, all right, I'm gonna get my money out. So he goes to TD and says, I want to take all my money out. They're like, what? He's like, yeah, I just want to take my money out. Like, give me my money. And he's like, when I asked this, I'm like, you don't have to tell me how much your bank account is worth, but it's over 100 grand, right? He's like, yeah. So he's like, I want my money out. So like, oh, we gotta schedule an appointment. He's like, why do I have to schedule an appointment to get my money? I just want to take all my money out.
They don't have it.
They don't have his money. It's been 6 months. They've been doing phone calls and different meetings, and they've been delaying the process because they don't have his money to give him. And
it's not there.
And that's the lesson everybody needs to realize, is that your bank account is just a number on the screen. So so by having cryptocurrencies, by having real estate, by having all these kind of different things and moving your money into different things, you actually protect yourself. Because
Yeah.
putting it in one place to save it doesn't make you rich. It makes you poor as hell because it's all gone.
Yeah,
Right?
and that's why I speak to people about the rat race. So you have poor people's rat race and you have rich people's rat race.
Yeah.
Right? Poor people's rat race is in regards to 9 to 5. You know, you're working and the money that you're getting is just not enough, so you have to work more and more and more. So you have to give more time.
Yeah.
Right, to your employer to make a profit. Rich people's rat race is that whenever they make a money from their investments or from their businesses, that money immediately goes into another investment.
Yeah.
It goes into real estate, it goes into gold, it goes into silver, they buy another business, which is why monopolies are created, because wealthy people have no choice but to take the fiat currency that they earn to put it into something else, because if they don't, they're going to lose it.
Well, speaking of monopolies, I think we have one building in Canada today. I don't know if you saw the news. Royal Bank buying HSBC.
No, I haven't. I didn't see it.
Royal Bank bought the Canadian operations of HSBC, so that just made them even bigger. They were the biggest bank in terms of assets before. Now they're even bigger. So
Yeah.
we have to question these things, because look at Rogers Communications buying Shaw. The continuous acquisition of these companies creating monopolies, it essentially reduces your purchasing power as a consumer.
Yeah,
Right?
and it's not their fault. The reason why these monopolies are there, in addition to what I just spoke about,
Yeah.
is government regulation. Can you and I start a bank?
No.
Precisely. And because you and I can start a bank, RBC doesn't have any competition.
Yeah.
They can buy up all the banks in Canada, and we can't start a bank to compete with them because the government is going to prevent.
Now you got me thinking about starting about the brown guy Bank of Canada, BBC.
Right?
No.
Yeah.
But the next thing I wanted to talk about, obviously, it's been in the news. The Emergency Act inquiry into the Freedom Convoy, and this one has puzzles all over my head, because the way the media kind of put coverage on this, the average Canadian doesn't give a shit. They're like, oh, whatever, they're just doing this, right? The ones that are in tune with the things and the threats that we face in the country, like people like me and you, have been paying attention to it. And the problem is, and we'll get into the details in a second, but the biggest thing I've taken away from all of this, regardless of what the outcome is, I think in February they're going to rule on it or whatever, is what I'm gathering is they're using this inquiry as a means to change the Emergency Act. I've heard, as soon as the conclusion happened, multiple media outlets saying that, it was written when they were using typewriters. We need to amend it to deal with today's problems. And when they mean by today's problems, they mean,
Dissent.
conservatives. They mean people who are not on the mainstream media side, people who are on social media talking, limiting social media, because most of the information was passed through social media during the convoy, and that's where all the decision making was taking place. It wasn't being taken there. Don't for one second be fooled that these guys were making decisions about policing and bringing this act into place by regular news. It was what they were hearing on social media, and they were getting false information from the media and from social media, and they were using it to create this mystical racist gathering of white and anti-black people, all the crazy shit. You know what I'm talking about. And that's my biggest fear, because if they amend that act, they will then use it at any time for any protest to shut it down, and
And
we will
and,
dissent.
and they won't even have to physically do any amendments. It's that the fact that they created a new interpretation.
Yeah.
So if the commission finds that Justin Trudeau was right in invoking the Emergencies Act, then the understanding of the act is going to change. And what that means, and I want you to cut this part out, and I want you to send it in the inbox of every single Black Lives Matter, Indigenous groups, or trans groups, or gay groups, or any minority slash protected groups in Canada. Cut this part out and send it to them. Now that the emergency, so let's say that the commission says that Justin Trudeau was correct. We now know that the interpretation of how the Emergencies Act can be used has changed. What that means is if a government that you don't like comes into power, and a government that you don't like, you protest against that government can now use that new interpretation against you.
Yeah.
So this is why I always say this to people. If the government creates a law that you think would be extremely dangerous in the hands of the government that you don't like, do not support that law. Don't support that policy. Don't support it, because eventually it's going to come around and bite you in the ass. And that is a fact.
Yeah.
No, outside of this, I don't think we should worry too much about the outcome of the commission. And here's why. We know who we are.
Yeah.
We know who the people in the Freedom Convoy were. We know what happened in Ottawa, and that's enough. That's enough for me. We went to Ottawa to defend our fundamental human rights and freedoms. The same fundamental human rights and freedoms that the people in the white paper revolution in China are fighting for right now. And that is what is more important than the outcome of this Public Emergency Order Commission.
Yeah. And the commission in itself, it brought out a lot of things. But at the same time, when you look at some of the testimonies, you look at like Freeland, and they didn't answer any fucking questions, right? They didn't. So it's become the point where, like, you see these guys get up and talk, and you're like, oh, okay, it's going to be like, we are here to protect the health and safety of every Canadian and fight against misinformation and disinformation. And I will always put the health and safety of Canadians first, no matter what. I can fucking regurgitate the verbal diarrhea before they even say it. It's gone to that point, and it's like they think we're stupid as fuck, right? And
they do think we're stupid.
Yeah, they think we're stupid as fuck.
Some of us are stupid.
But I think, yeah, a lot of people are stupid. Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. But it's almost if they have gone to the point where they're not even thinking anymore. They're just regurgitating it over and over and over and over again. And they're thinking that we're just going to buy into it. And some people will. A lot of people do buy into it. And like one of the kind of things that kind of opened my eyes is, like, I'm not going to say their names or anything, but I have a client, and he was just like, oh, if when the convoy happened, they should have just got all the police and just shut it fucking down. Just get them out of there right in the first fucking day. And this whole thing is silly. And I'm like, and I asked him the question. I'm like, how did you plan on doing this? He's like, oh, I'd just enforce it, tell the police to do it. I'm like, well, in my industry, in the martial arts and the fighting business, I train with a lot of police officers. I know a lot of guys in law enforcement. Not one of the fucking guys that I train with or know went. And they were all asked. They were all asked to go, and they all said no. And I've asked one of my good friends, he's pretty high up in the police department. I've asked him, I'm like, honestly, dude, do you believe that those officers that were clearing out were actual, like, colleagues of yours and other departments? He said, no, it's probably the handful of few that are dickheads, and we probably had a bunch of UN soldiers that were dressed up in disguise as police officers. And that's straight from, I won't say his name because I can't compromise him. That's straight from a high-ranking police officer in one of our forces here. They didn't want to do it. The police department right now, the guys that I know that are in it, are highly supportive of what happened, are highly supportive of the freedom and being able to do what you want, and they're against a lot of this shit. But unfortunately, if you look at the Durham Region police officer, that woman, I forgot her name, but she had posted a video in support of the
Yeah.
convoy. And do you see the punishment for her or her husband? Dude, they're making him do 60 unpaid hours of work as punishment for support.
Punishment, that's slavery.
Yeah. And nobody's batting a fucking eyelash about that. You're talking about a police officer who was forced to apologize for then saying I was wrong. And then his punishment was 60 unpaid hours. I might get the hours wrong, but it's between 60 and 80 of unpaid police work.
That's weird.
I'm not even fucking with you. That's fact. That's not misinformation or disinformation for you little fucks out there who care about that shit. That's real. Imagine your boss saying to you, you dropped the milk at work. You have to now stay an extra 5 hours to pay off for that. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, that is where we have descent. That's how we're treating our law enforcement. If we disagree, if they have an opinion, you disagree with them, you have to now do unpaid work.
Yeah, that definitely is slavery. Slavery, right? There's no other way to describe that.
Yeah, I'll try to find the article and show you, but it's factual. That's happening in Durham region. That's happening to a Durham region officer right now. Like, and that's just for voicing their. So why do you think the police officer are not speaking up? They support the movements and the people in the shadows, but they can't speak up because look at what happens. Now they have to do. That's over a week worth of free work, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, they have to sleep.
And like another part of this inquiry that really kind of egged me, but I'm not surprised, is like after Trudeau did his testimony, obviously, like I don't like giving CBC ratings, but I went on YouTube and let me see their take on this, right? Because I listened to him talk. I sacrificed 20 minutes of my life to listen to some of that his terrible voice speak. It makes me want to just shoot myself in the fucking face listening to that guy talk. And nothing positive came out of that. And nothing no justification came out of it for why he did it. He just spewed, like I said, the verbal diarrhea, the same crap over and over and over again. Then you go to the CBC and you listen to them and they say, oh, he did really good job. You know, he definitely showed why he justified using it. And so the problem with this is that people who aren't paying attention are now taking that for word from those people. And it's not the truth. If you listen to those testimonies, if you listen to Freeland talk, you listen to Justin Trudeau talk, they provided no concrete evidence or justification of why they used that legislation that should only be specifically used basically in war times, right? And the way the media has spun it, they like, you know, at the end of his testimony with the convoy lawyer, where she asked, why are you so afraid of your people?
Yeah.
It was a very powerful statement, right? And he couldn't answer. Like he almost smiled and laughed like, fuck, that was a good one, right? That's probably what he was thinking, right?
Yeah, he responded and said, "We aren't and we don't," or something like that.
Yeah, but he smiled because in his head he was like, no. In his head he was like, damn, she got me with a good one there, a good singer, right? That wasn't on their little highlight reel when they did the news, when CBC posted that clip. Why not? You know what I mean? We are, you know, everyone's talking about censorship in China, and we're literally day by day being censored by the exact same people you vote for. And it's almost like, how much can I say it before I'm like, fuck it, I'm tired. Like, that's it.
That's why I'm waiting. I'm waiting for Elon to you know accidentally find a new planet.
Yeah.
So I can take my wife and kids and stow away on one of the ships, you know, and light years ahead, you know, and drop on like this entire world is upside down, and I'm watching. It's amazing. It's really amazing. I'm watching people supporting the white paper revolution in China that's protesting lockdown measures while hating the Freedom Convoy and hating people in Canada who opposed lockdown measures that would have resulted in China level zero COVID lockdowns if we didn't stop it.
Yeah, and did you see Trudeau today? He was like, "Yeah, I support them."
Yeah, I see him.
They have the right to protest and we support that. I'm like, you motherfucker, the same thing happened here.
Yeah.
The same thing
Yeah.
fucking happened here. And you,
Here's the funny thing. Here's the funny thing. So you see, so this goes back to your conversation about Iran.
yeah,
So you see how outspoken and strong the politicians are against Iran. Look how quiet they are about the CCP.
yeah,
You see how they're sidestepping the issue, not speaking too hard against Xi Jinping.
yeah.
You realize that?
Because I mean, there is more at play than we know. There's
Yes.
more at play than we know. And if we know it, dude, it would send this place into chaos. We will be rioting in the streets and breaking shit, and society will break down. Because
Mhm.
I like one of the guys I've had on this podcast. He used to be my old head coach, but he's a history major, and he always said this to me over the last 2 years. Every time we talked, was that history always repeats itself. Actually, so I always try to go back and look at like crazy time because I'm not a historian, right? And I'm not interested in reading like 1,000 books. I got other stuff to do, but I'll pay more attention to history. And we see history repeating itself in a very different way now, like a more modern, technological, informational way. But
Mhm.
it's repeating itself. It's repeating itself, and we're failing to pick up on these red flags as society. And what ends up going to happen is like, who knows? Like, I mean, the thing with China that's happening is the one benefit I see about it. And when I say benefit, like I know there's a lot of people suffering, but the one benefit I see about this is the potential for them to invade Taiwan reduces as these protests grow and get stronger. Because it's very hard for a government to have support to do a war against a country when there's mass protests the way there is going here. Now, I know in Russia they had some protests and they shut those down quickly, but from what I understand, obviously our views are limited because we don't get proper images from China. From what I understand, these protests are way bigger than what happened in Russia.
Mhm.
And I think on the benefit side is that might delay any kind of action because my biggest fear and concern for my family is that like if China was to invade, it would lead to a world conflict, right? And that's the biggest thing. And I think that this uprising of the people has a lot of benefit to, you know, not letting that happen.
So I have another take on history that I'm gonna try out here.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that history repeats itself. I think it's that the tyrants are getting better and better at controlling society. So think back to Hitler, Stalin, Mao, Lenin days, right?
Yeah.
They tried communism, they tried Marxism, they tried socialism, and they tried fascism. But it ended up working out in a way where they ended up losing their lives, destroying their countries, or basically losing the wars.
Yeah.
So what happens now is that they just simply get smarter. They say, okay, this didn't work. Let's try to find another way to make this work because a lot of people realize that lots of the Nazis, the fascists and the communists, like they didn't die. Like they just moved to the US.
They're in Argentina. I bet you they're in
Right?
Argentina, right?
Yeah, right. They just moved to other countries, infiltrated their governments, and started pushing
Yeah.
their communist fascist ideologies, which leads us to today, where we have now another fascist system to worry about, which is the stakeholder capitalism's great reset.
Yeah.
Right? So we have that to worry about. Klaus Schwab and his fourth industrial revolution.
Fucking
Right?
Scrooge McDuck, that guy.
Yeah, right. So that's my take of history. It's just that the tyrants are just getting smarter and smarter over time. Now they're putting this tyrannical system in front of us that people are willingly opting into. People are volunteering to become slaves. They're like, you know what? Instead of forcing people to become slaves, instead of putting chains on them, instead of beating them up, instead of doing all these things, let's create a system where they opt into slavery. And that's what's happening right now. People are opting into slavery. People are opting into online censorship. People are opting into giving their guns away to Trudeau, right?
That's another one. You guys are gonna, if you want what I got, you gotta have to come bang the door down and come take it, because I ain't giving those fucking things up, bro.
Right. So yeah, and this all goes back into with China right now. If the Chinese people had their guns, would Xi Jinping be as brave
Absolutely
as he
not.
is, as
Absolutely not.
bold as he is?
Absolutely not. And I have a client from Hong Kong, and I ask him this all the time. Like, I ask him questions about China, because he was born and raised there. He's about, I think he's 78, so he's older. He was born and raised there, and he moved here for a better life. He escaping the communism. But I asked him, like, why don't people like fight back? Like, why is it so hard for them to just, like, if someone's telling you what to do, why don't you just say no? And he's like, because they're chickens, Ashton. And I'm like, what do you mean they're chickens? I'm like, how can, like, if someone doing something to me, I'll just be like, no, I'll fight you. I'll fight back, right? Whether it be physical, verbal, mental warfare, I'll fight. But basically, what he said is, communism has been so ingrained in the people for years and generation after generation after generation. So
Cattle.
yeah, so like the hard people were like him, and he left, right? He left. He got out of there. He's like, I'm bringing my family here, and I'm raising my kids here, and I'm gonna get a better life in Canada. And the ones that couldn't get out and stayed have, over time, the governments and the communists have softened the people and softened them to the point where they're at today, right? Where it's taking 3 years of lockdowns and barricading them to the house. And I don't know if you saw about the story about the fire, which kind of led to all of this, right? Where these people died in the fire because they couldn't get out, because they were barricaded in their place, because they were, they didn't want everyone to catch the flu, right?
And beat the BBC journalist to prevent him from catching COVID.
Yeah, for catching, we don't want you to catch the flu, bro. So we're gonna detain you. So the people, it's a systematic oppression over time. And I think we talked about this last time, systemic oppression, but it's not something new. It's just have been a thing that they've used. Tyrants have used for a long time, and I think what we're seeing now in Canada is we're going to see a lot of people, like you said, a lot of people are just going to say, "Yeah, sure, I'll go along with it." But what my main concern is in the education system and in the schools, they're softening these kids with all these woke ideologies and policies, so that as generations go on, because this is not a overnight thing. Like, controlling a mass population doesn't happen overnight, unless you take a giant military in and put guns to everybody's head. You can't do that in a North American or Western society, because we have guns too, and people here are willing to fight without guns even, right? So it's going to take a massive psychological warfare over time, and what we're seeing right now is that the beginning of it, right? And the thing about it is this thinking exponentially grow, and I think COVID was the exponentially growing factor. It gave this catalyst for this 10-15 year timeline that these tyrants put in place. Well, okay, now we cut that in half, because COVID gave us leverage to isolate, to infiltrate, to brainwash, and to do all the things that we normally need to do over a 15-20 year period in 3 years, right? And it's sad to see it, but at the end of the day, people will do whatever the government says as long as they're comfortable. And then once they're not comfortable anymore, things change. But the problem is when you're not comfortable anymore, it might be too late. And then what are you gonna do? Then you're gonna come looking for Devon and Ashton. Hey, what do we do, guys?
Yeah, because with the Chinese people, it's decades and decades and decades of brainwashing, and Western governments have learned a lot from China, and they're basically doing the same to us.
Yeah,
we have, and which is why I say that Marxism is a threat. It is a dangerous threat to the West, because Marxism is a disease.
Yeah,
right. Marxism is like a religion, but it's a toxic religion, because the whole purpose of Marxism is to create a culture war, a race war, or a class war, in order to implement communism. That's the whole entire purpose of Marxism. The
Yeah.
problem is that when Marxists try to implement their system and they realize that communism isn't really working out the way that they want it to work out, they become fascists.
Yeah, exactly.
Communist always becomes fascist. It's the natural order of things.
Yeah.
And that's why Hitler played around with fascism, because he realized that what he wanted to do wouldn't work right now.
Yeah.
The country that tried communism haven't actually tried full-blown communism simply because it doesn't work. And when they try the full-blown communism, their country starts to crash on itself, and then they have to rely on fascism to save the country, because fascism does is exert indirect control of the economy, similar to what China is doing right now.
Yeah.
So you have Apple in China, you have Tesla, you have all of these companies. At the same time, these companies have to do business to benefit the Chinese Communist Party.
Yeah.
And if they don't do business to benefit the CCP, then the CCP can nationalize their businesses, or they can keep them out of the country.
Well, they'll pull the plug on them. They'll pull the plug on them, right?
Yes.
And, I mean,
just like Apple right now. So apparently the protesters in China were circumventing the Chinese censorship system using Apple's airdrop system, and then Apple limited airdrop, right, at the behest of the Chinese government.
And there's a few positive things coming out of the West to limit China, and I think I won't go into too much depth because it's kind of a boring topic, but like the whole chip thing, right? The chip, like the U.S. did that Chip Act, right? There's a company, I think ASML. They make these giant fucking machines that literally produce all the chips, right? And they said they won't sell to China anymore. These are like $500 million machines, right?
Yeah.
So you can't just get one. Like they take years to build and then they send them off. So those are the chips that China wants, but now they can't get. So there are some actions to kind of circumvent the CCP's ability to kind of spread this kind of thing, but at the same time, it's a little bit too late for that. By the time the effects of that happen, we might be in a global situation we don't want to be in.
The fastest way to limit China without destroying your own country is to actually place a let's say just use Canada for example. I think the national minimum wage is what, $16 per hour? What is it?
$15.50, but I think it's province by province. I don't think it's national.
There should be a national one. I don't remember. Well, let's say that the national minimum wage for Canada, or the lowest minimum wage in Canada was $15 per hour, right? If you wanted to reduce the country's reliance on China, all you have to do is to draft legislation that says that any company exporting products to Canada should ensure that their workers are being paid at the same minimum wage in Canada. You see, when you do that, what happens is that the corporations in this country will now be able to compete with Chinese corporations on equal footing.
Yeah, but that's never going to happen. That's no, I agree with you. That should be in place. But the problem with that is economically, it would probably drive the cost of things up so much more, because of it would take years and years and years of competition before some of the players were weeded out, and then the prices could come down, right?
As a libertarian, I don't support the minimum wage. I think that the market should set wages, and
same with me.
And that includes labor wages. However, that I know that is an unrealistic ask. It's never gonna happen.
No.
Right? So my solution then, knowing that this will not happen, is to limit other countries' wages when they're importing products into Canada, and that way corporations here can compete on that same equal footing. And remember, when those corporations start competing on the equal footing, you're creating more jobs.
Yeah.
Right. And you're boosting wages. Right.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's a multiple layer economical discussion to have
Yeah.
with somebody who's way like our math skills are not nearly good enough to figure that one out. But no, you're right. I believe in a free market too, but I also do believe that there needs to be a minimum standard of living for you to earn a living, right? But I also don't think that you should be able to demand more money
Yeah.
just because you feel like you want more money. Like if you flip burgers at Burger King, I'm sorry, but your skill set is only a $10 an hour job. If you want to demand more money, your skill set needs to increase. That's why we have education. That's why we have levels in companies. So the way the worker revolution is kind of coming now, especially like in North America, it's more like, oh, we demand more. Well, no, you can't just demand something. You have to earn it. If you can't show that your skill is worthy of that wage, you don't get it. It's that simple, right? But at the same time, like you said, I view myself as more of a libertarian than a conservative, to be honest with you. You do need a minimum standard of living. And with the cost of living in Canada and North America as high as it is right now, we're facing a problem, right? But at the same time, you can't boost minimum wage to $20 an hour. Then you're going to drive everyone out of business.
So that's why, Ashton, you have to ask the question about. You have to ask this question: why do we keep having to increase the minimum wage? Why do we have a minimum wage, and why do we have a low standard of living? And the answer to that question is one word: inflation.
Yeah.
What causes inflation? Fiat currency monetary system.
Yeah.
Who manipulates it? Government.
Central bank.
Yes,
Yeah.
right. So that is the reason why we have a minimum wage in the first place, because the government keeps stealing the value of our earning. The government keeps stealing our wealth. You put your money under your mattress. You put $5,000 under your mattress. In the morning, you wake up and it's valued at $4,900.
Yeah.
Right. So that is why we have this rat race trying to chase down inflation, trying to increase minimum wage to increase the standard of living. So if society really wanted a good standard of living, it starts by abolishing the fiat currency system, abolishing central banks, and abolishing the government's ability to manipulate money, which is why we promote something called free banking.
Yeah.
Which is basically a free market banking system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's kinks to be worked out in that, but I agree with you. It has to, that the only way to curve this whole issue in terms of economics that's going on, we're like, as much as people don't want to admit it, we're close to economic collapse in North America, in both the U.S. and Canada. Canada more so than the U.S. Just because of the numbers game, but we're very close. And if we were to implement a system like that, it could, after the collapse, if it gets there, then it would be, I think it would be in the benefit of everybody for that. One of the other things I wanted to go more local, because I know I saw you were posting a lot about this happening over the last few weeks, and with the mask mandates and these certain groups coming and trying to push in this shit back. And thankfully it hasn't been instituted yet. I'm still waiting because I'm very skeptical. I feel like at some day they're just gonna say, screw it, we're gonna go back in. But who's at the source of this screamery to bring back mandates in? Because I don't feel like I feel like the Ford government knows it's political suicide. But at the same time, there's still calls for it. Is it the unions? Is it special interest groups? Who's pulling the strings and trying to manipulate government into making these calls now?
Yeah, you ask a very good question, and I really don't know who the people are. I know that the common types are the Marxists and the communists, right? Those are the common types, and you can find them in the unions, right? You can find them in the NDP, and you can find them in the federal and provincial liberal parties.
Yeah.
So those are the people who are actually pushing the mask mandate. And you have one that I call before I call her crazy Dr. Nilly. Now I call her crazy COVID zero Dr. Nilly.
Man, that chick is nuts. It was great when she went on that that show. I think she went on a podcast and they kicked
And
her
he hung
off.
up on her.
Yeah, I mean, like, who are you to go on someone else's show and say, "Wait a minute, let me finish"? I'm like, no, bitch, this is my show. I'm gonna fucking.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess she has a little bit of mental problems going on. And there's this other doctor, I can't remember his name. He's Dr. Lily's soulmate. I can't recall his name.
Yeah,
But yeah, but I don't know what it is, what their problem is, why they want to continue this policy of forcing particularly children to wear
yeah.
masks in schools while they're out and about and going to parties with no mask. I don't know
Yeah.
why.
Speaking of that, I was waiting for you to do that because that fucking doctor, Kieran frickin' Moore, what a piece of
Hypocrite.
shit. What hypocrite's a nice way. I'm gonna let you say hypocrite. That's a nice way to put it. I'm gonna say he's a piece of shit because it's a piece of shit thing that he did. He goes out on television, says you should wear your mask indoors. I'm sorry, even if you're at home and you have the sniffles.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Are you kidding me? In my home, and I got the sniffles, and you want me to wear a mask? And 2 days later, that piece of shit is at was it Toronto Life, right? And I believe that's some sort of magazine or publication. It must not be a good one because I've never read it, but it's supposedly some high profile thing. So he goes to a party, he's maskless, right? So I took the liberty of looking up this Toronto Life list because it was for the most influential people. And
Mm.
right, so now everyone is this is called Toronto Life. So I'm assuming they're going to list the 50 people in the city of Toronto who are doing the greatest thing to help people, right? That's what I'm assuming. So I'm like, oh, this doctor's on the list. This garbage man, who's this hypocrite, as you put it, the nice way of putting it. I call him a
Mhm.
garbage man because it's spewing garbage out. Uh, he's on this list. So I took the liberty of looking up the list. I'm just gonna read the list out to you here. The first like 5, okay? Of the
Yeah.
most. These are the most I'm assuming Toronto because it's called Toronto Life magazine. So here's number 1, Simu Liu, the actor.
Oh, from Marvel?
Yeah, who doesn't live in Canada because he has a place in California because I saw it on Selling Sunset. Yes, I watched
He's
that.
Canadian?
Yeah, he's Canadian. So
Oh.
he's one of the most influential people. Yeah, that's number 1. Number 2, Tim McLean, the governor of the Bank of Canada. Number 3, Doug Ford. Number 4, Christina Freeland. Number 5, Drake.
Drake.
Drake. Number 6, John Tory. Number 7, Anita Anand, Minister of National Defense.
Uh-huh.
Number 8, Lisa LaFlamme.
Who's that? Who's that? I don't know who that is.
That's that journalist that Bell fired because she was garbage.
Oh.
Number 9, Jagmeet Singh. Number 10, Cameron Bailey is the CEO and president of TIFF, which is also a woke
Yeah,
organization.
the moment you call Jagmeet Singh's name, like the other names were bad enough.
Yeah.
The moment you call Jagmeet Singh's name, throw the whole Toronto Life away. The whole entire thing.
So, and this list goes on, and like Kieran Moore, the doctor is number 12, right? And then you look at some of the other people they have on this list. Edward Rogers, chairman of Rogers Communication. And then you go down later and you'll see like this girl, Jenny Bryan, political strategist. So I look at this list and I ask myself, as a Torontonian, I've lived here almost my whole life, moved away for school, come back. Not one of these effing people have any influence on the day-to-day life of actual people in the city and province of Toronto. They
have caused harm
like,
to everyday people.
And like you click on this list and they give you an example of like what they've done to earn this place, right? And then I click on the Tim McLean, the governor of the Bank of Canada, and they said he gets on this list because inflation and his way of handling it has been well. I'm not even fucking with you. You can read this. I have it list up right here. He handles it well. He's handling it well. That's their justification, right? When I look at a list of the most influential people in a city like Toronto, a vibrant, huge population city, I want to see guys like
Nia Singh.
Yeah, Nia Singh. But I'll give you more specific on a community level. And because I love this guy, he's my old football coach, Roberto Bubba Allen. I'm giving him a shout out. He's the head coach of the Scarborough Thunder Football Association. He helped multiple kids who were probably going to end up in jail or on the street have a life, play football, go to university, get an education. Those are the kind of people on this list that we should be celebrating. Instead, you put Doug fucking Ford, Christina Freeland, the governor of the bank. All of this Toronto life bullshit is a glorification of the elites. And it's a brainwashing tool to make you think that they are doing a good fucking job when really, who should be on this list? It should be doctors in the community. It should be coaches in the community. It should be teachers who are influencing young men and young women's lives. They should be celebrated. They should be having a gala, an event, and their names should be put out there. Not Simon Liu. I'm sure he's a nice fucking guy, but you're a rich actor and you're buying houses on Selling Sunset. You're not a fucking influence in Toronto. I'm sorry, you're not. Like, don't give me that shit.
That list was a real list, about people who are doing good in Toronto and influencing other people's lives. Nia Singh would be on that list because I spent a day driving around with Nia Singh back during the Ontario provincial election. And randomly people would walk up to this guy, right? People who like Nia got out of jail, help them get back on their feet, after some kind of running with the police. Like, he's been helping underprivileged youth in his community. And then I find out that his daughter is doing the same exact thing. His whole entire family is in Toronto helping underprivileged youths.
Those are the kind of people we need to be celebrating. Those are the kind of people we should be having galas for. Those are the kind of people whose work, and they don't get any money for this stuff. The stuff that they're doing, the influence that they're doing, and the changes that they're making in such a big city like Toronto. And when the reason I brought this list up is because it angered me so much, because I know there are people out there that are actually doing good, and the only thing an event like this does is make them less worth anything, right? Because they are working so hard to give other people and kids and different kind of people from all walks of life a second chance at life and helping them. And then all we're doing is worshiping the elites, telling the governor of the Bank of Canada, yeah, you're doing a good job. No, you're doing a shit job. Because if you were doing a good job, we wouldn't have handed out all that goddamn money to the Liberal government so that they can spew it out and we wouldn't be in this problem in the first place. We knew that would happen. We knew printing money was a bad thing, but the governor, he got number 2 on the fucking list, right? And I know a lot of people are gonna hate me, but Drake on the list of most influential people, I'm sorry, the most he's done for the city is jumped up and down at a Toronto Raptors game, right? He's not actually in the community helping people. And you can call me out and prove me wrong. If you prove me wrong, great. But I guarantee I'm not wrong on that. And the problem we're going to keep going in this vicious circle, especially in Canada, is when we keep doing things like this, where we keep worshiping and having media come up with these bull crap events and bullshit lists glorifying these people and giving them more power and giving them more notoriety. There's no way on a list of the most influential people a political strategist should be on that list.
Correct.
I don't even know what the job title is of a political strategist. I don't care. But you are not a contributing member of society for the better. There's no way you should be on the goddamn list.
I don't even know who that is. I know most Antons probably don't know who that person is either.
Yeah, that's a job. And those people are getting up and making tons of money and are helping these people get into these political powers. And we're just sitting here and celebrating them. And we're Dr. Moore is, are you kidding me? He's been in the job for what, a year? He gets that status. Are you kidding me?
That's what happens when your actions doesn't fit what you actually believe, right? Or doesn't fit what you believe are facts.
Yeah. And I mean, I had to get I was like when you mentioned that guy, I'm like, okay, great, because I wanted to talk about that. I wanted to get that. Now, before we wrap it up, there was a interesting thing when we were going back and forth over text. You were saying you were writing a book, right?
Oh, yes.
Yes. And I want to hear about that, and I want everyone to kind of hear like your process and what that's going to be about, and what we can look forward to.
Yeah, so over the last 3 years, like the COVID pandemic woke up most of us, right? And if you were awake before, you're even more awake right now. And I saw how they used race, religion, culture, sex, gender, sexuality to divide society. They divided society so much that the government was able to gain significantly more power. So the book that I'm writing, it's called Critical Government Theory. And the reason why I call it critical government theory is because I'm challenging some aspects of critical race theory that that proposes CRT proposes that society in essence is racist.
Yeah.
Everything around us is white supremacist. Every problem that we have as a society is because of white people. And I'm pushing back against that divisive rhetoric. And I'm saying, listen, I understand you're not wrong that there's something wrong with society and there's something wrong with the system. But what you're proposing that is wrong is actually not the problem. The problem in society is the fact that government is using these systems to divide people and to conquer them and to control them in ways that we cannot imagine. Hence, critical government theory comes in where we start talking about teaching children and adults how money works, teaching them about the political systems, teaching them about economic systems, because Black kids don't need to learn that they're victims to be successful. What they need to learn is how government policies, economic and political, affects their lives. And once they learn that, they'll better be able to navigate the game of life. And that's what critical government theory is.
There you go. I'm looking forward to reading it when it comes up, bro.
So what I'm doing is I'm not releasing it whole. What I'm doing is I created a Substack account and I'm going to be releasing different chapters on Substack, and I'm going to be asking subscribers for their comments on each chapter, and if there's something that they think I should add, if there's a mistake that I made, if something isn't correct, I want the feedback from our community, so that by the time I complete all chapters, I can now put it together into a factual book that everybody can read. And I don't want the critical race theorists to think that I'm coming out to attack them, because as I said, you're right. Something is wrong with society, but it's not what you think. And that's what I'm trying to say. Critical race theory might have been a good thing back in the days when our ancestors were slaves, when they suffered under segregation and discrimination, but we don't need it right now. That is not what we need, because everybody is facing systematic oppression from the government, regardless of the color of their skin, their religion, their culture, or their gender.
And that's what I can't wait to read it. And have that Substack up already? Is that already?
Substack's there right now. It's populated with some content right now. I'm gonna be launching the first article very soon. But if you go on Substack and you type in Devon Thompson .substack, Devon A Thompson .substack, you should be able to gain access to it.
All right.
Here it is. Here.
All right, cool. I'll post that link on the podcast too, on the video, so everybody can get to it. And there you go. That's it. And I'm glad you're doing things like that, because and the way you just described how you want to populate it to get to the point where you have the finished product, I think it is very good too. And we're missing, like, I wish more journalists and authors who are writing kind of things would go on that route where they get the feedback and they say, hey, tell me if I'm doing something wrong here. Because then you can make your work even better. You know what I mean? And like, personally, as a martial artist, that's what I do every day. We'll go into the gym, and I'll do something, and I'll in my profession, it's a little bit different. You have a little bit different consequence. So you get choked out or whatever. But I'm like, what am I doing wrong? And I ask somebody who's better than me, what am I doing wrong? Where am I going wrong? How do I fix it? And that's, I think, a lost art that we've lost in the world, where we all think we're some sort of perfectionists, or what we think in our head is fact in the end result. Whereas, it's okay to get criticism sometimes and to make your work even better. So
Yeah.
I respect you for doing it that way. That's a
Thank you.
very, very honorable way of getting your work out there and coming up with this project.
It's a two-part book. Book one is just educating on critical government theory, and book two is complete action items, which talks about free market education, school choice, talks about free decentralizing energy, talks about agriculture, stuff like that, to reduce our reliance on government. And these are going to be fully researched action items. So don't just subscribe, get a paid subscription, because that's the only way I'll be able to conduct the research necessary to actually get book two completed. So I don't know if you're aware of this. I'm a professional engineer.
Yeah.
That's my background, and that's what I want to use my skills to do, to engineer a better future for society.
There you go.
Yeah.
Devon Thompson, thank you for doing this again, man. It's always a pleasure, and we'll do it again when we have some more craft to talk about.
Okay. All right. No problem.
All right. Thanks a lot, brother, and I appreciate you doing it. All right.
Thanks, Ashton.
All right. Hey, everybody. Thank you for watching and listening to the Grands My Gears podcast. Please head over to Spotify. Make sure you like and subscribe, as well as head over to YouTube. Hit the subscribe button and the like on the video as well. And head over to gmg-podcast.com to get all up-to-date info on the podcast, as well as other special things that we have on that website.